So far in the Fenix video series, we've covered the installation of Fenix and how to create and use web servers. There's another feature called the request browser that's a little bit different from serving websites. It's actually about receiving requests primarily from webhooks. So I'm going to walk through how to use that by launching Fenix here. And you may recognize our websites from prior videos, but we're not going to talk about those because we've already done that. So for this video, we want to focus on the request browser, and I'm going to click on that. And you'll notice that it brings up this fairly empty window saying that it's accepting requests. You may have noticed that the top toolbar where it's currently green, it starts out, it's actually gray at the very beginning when it's establishing a server, and then it turns yellow when the local server is available. After that, it turns green once the web server is shared publicly. And what I mean by web server is it's actually accepting requests. So it'll accept a GET request or a POST or a PUT or a DELETE or just about anything. And so that's what we're going to be covering here. But that's something that exists on the web today. You may be familiar with services like, I think, RequestBin and a couple of others that you can use to inspect webhooks. But one of the key features of Fenix that differs from those online services is the ability to do it offline. So if you are a developer that has created webhooks of your own you're running on your desktop, then you may not be able to post out to the internet, or you may not have the ability to. For example, if you're on the train and you don't have Wi-Fi connectivity, or maybe it's spotty. So one key feature of Fenix is the ability to unshare your server, and you'll still be able to accept requests on localhost. So I'm going to just click on this for the time being. And you'll notice it brings up just a dead page, just says OK there. And there were 2 GET requests. But what's going on? You know, it's just blank here, right? So what? If we show the headers, you can see what information was passed with this request. But this is for a standard GET request. And in this case, it showed up twice because the page is actually requesting the HTML page as well as the fave icon. So that's why there are 2 requests there. But this isn't really normal. You're not typically going to see a webhook or something being posted to your service as a GET unless that's through a normal web server. But the whole point of this request browser is to inspect data that is sent to you, which is mostly going to be coming through a POST request or a PUT. So this particular scenario isn't really all that useful. So let's take a look at one that is. I'm going to launch Postman here to simulate a webhook coming in from the outside world. And you can see I've already got it set up here for localhost port 56789. And I'm currently just submitting some basic XML. So we're going to go ahead and send that. And you can see that this post came in and you have some actual content, some data there, which is color-coded and line numbered. And of course, the headers are still there just as any other request. So this will format XML. It'll also format JSON, which I'm going to show here as well. And we're going to send that as a post as well. And you can see the JSON actually here formatted for you. I'm also going to show that you can send this as a PUT, or even, this one isn't really going to make a lot of sense, but you could even send it as a delete request. And I'm only showing this off because even though it's the same values here, it is color-coded, so it's a little bit easier to see what's going on and kind of identify a request. It shows where the request has come from. In this case, it's just the local IP address, along with a little bit of a timestamp here. So that's a way that you can actually inspect requests that are coming in from your local machine. And at the moment, this isn't connected to the internet at all. It's just purely me creating requests on my local system from Postman to Fenix. But in the real world, we're going to want to be inspecting webhooks that come in from outside services. So I'm going to walk through that by sharing this. And my connection is created, and I have an externally accessible link here that I'm going to copy. And I'm going to fire up GitHub here. And we're going to go to the Fenix repository. I'm going to go into the settings to webhooks and services. And I have an old webhook that I'm going to go ahead and remove here. I'm going to create a new webhook. And for the payload URL, we're going to put in our publicly accessible URL for Fenix. And we're also going to set the payload version to JSON. The form will typically work, but it depends on the SSH tunnel that you're using. Some will not support the multi-part or form data type. So we're just going to go straight JSON here, which I'm thinking is probably the most common use case for people these days. But I'm going to set this up to send me only specific events. And let's send a, let's do a commit here. Actually, no, a push will be fine. So I'm going to add this webhook to GitHub. And you can actually see over here, the post came in. And this is just an initial test from GitHub. So let's explore this a little bit. You can see the deliveries here. And this is what GitHub sent as the payload. And we received it right here on Fenix. So I'm going to redeliver that again just to point something else out. When I hit redeliver, it sends that over again. And there is a growl notification down here, which you may or may not have seen last time. Depending on the context of the window, it will blink if you notify, or if it's notified that a new webhook has come in. So there are a couple of visual indicators, but more times than not, you'll probably be looking at the screen in this shape. So with that, you've seen how we can accept a publicly deployed webhook from GitHub. Of course, you can use this with any service that you want, and you'd be able to inspect your requests here in pretty significant detail. So that's about all there is to receiving webhooks. So we're going to go ahead and close this down. And when we close out, that's it. So I hope that this has been helpful. I hope that this feature is something you'll find useful. And that wraps it up for the primary parts of the Fenix video web series. There is an additional component for, it's actually an add-on program for terminal access or console use. So you can control Fenix from your console. And that will be in the fourth and final part of our introduction to Fenix video series.